During the American Revolution, a young soldier named Benjamin joined the Continental Army to fight for his country's independence from the British. He had grown up hearing stories of the grievances against the British, and he felt it was his duty to fight for the cause. Benjamin had been fighting alongside his fellow soldiers for several months with much success against the Redcoats. One day, during a battle, he was struck by a musket ball in the leg. The pain was excruciating, and Benjamin fell to the ground. He was unable to stand, and his fellow soldiers had to rush him to the rear of the battlefield, where a flying hospital, or simply a tent, with basic medical equipment was set up. There was no telling what to expect, as most doctors were uneducated and could opt to use various methods. He was laid on a hard wooden table that was unsanitized with obvious bloodstains and dirt covering the surface. A leather tourniquet with screws was placed above the wound to control the bleeding. Then the doctor quickly set to work on taking out the musket ball with unsanitized bullet extractors. Anesthesia had not yet been invented at the time. Benjamin groaned and gasped in pain. He was only given a piece of wood to bite down on while the doctor extracted the ball from his leg. He eventually passed out just as the doctor had dropped the ball onto the floor. As Benjamin lay unconscious, Doctor turns to grab his water bucket and towel. He had used this same bucket for all his patients that day, never replacing the water or towel. He proceeded to wipe the wound down and dress it securely with cotton bandages. Benjamin awakes early the next day feeling the need to vomit and presents with a fever. He is also in excruciating pain from the swelling of the wound site. The doctor evaluates the state of Benjamin's leg and then proceeds to perform a procedure called bloodletting. The doctor nicks one of his veins above the injury site with his worn scalpel and begins to drain the blood. "20 ounces is taken before Benjamin passes out again from the loss of blood. The doctor sees this as a sign to stop and that the disease has been expelled from the body. The next morning, Benjamin awakes to a foul smell of decaying flesh coming from his body. The doctor undresses the wound and finds flesh has a rotten appearance and most color is gone below the wound site. The only solution now is to amputate. An amputation saw is brought to the doctor that was just used in the next tent over. Benjamin is barely conscious while the leg is amputated. The doctor again uses his bucket and towel to clean and redress the site. Unfortunately, Benjamin would only go on to live for another 2 days as infection and blood loss have severely weakened him and now have taken his life. Much was not understood at the time. Doctors and surgeons didn't have any knowledge about bacteria, germs, or viruses. Most of their knowledge was based off of medical theories, not actual facts. None of the doctors or surgeons practiced sterilization because they didn't know that bacteria or viruses could infect a wound. They didn't know that diseases were spread by them, and also that people were getting sick because of such tight, close quarters. The common illnesses found during the war were dysentery, smallpox, and fever. Dysentery is an infection in your intestines that causes bloody diarrhea. It can be caused by a parasite or bacteria. Smallpox is an acute contagious disease caused by the variola virus. Infected individuals developed a fever and a progressive, disfiguring skin rash. During the war, 3 out of 10 of soldiers who contracted this virus died. Dr. Benjamin Rush was a signer of the Declaration of Independence, an early abolitionist and fighter for prison reform. His most lasting impact was as the father of American psychiatry. Dr. James McHenry served as a secretary to George Washington and as a personal assistant to the Marquis de Lafayette during the Revolutionary War. He went on to sign the Constitution and serve as a Secretary of War for Washington and John Adams. Dr. Joseph Warren was the personal physician for many of Boston's most notable founders, even giving a young John Adams an early version of the smallpox vaccine. Joseph was a tireless patriot who sent Paul Revere on his famous ride and demanded he serves on the front lines during the Battle of Bunker Hill, during which he was martyred for this cause.